Good evening, welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom on the program tonight. As the COVID numbers soar in Maharashtra, the centre comes out with its report, and it's a stinging report that says that Maharashtra is in phase 2 of COVID. High community transmission in places, absence of rigorous tracing, vaccine hesitancy, all part of this report by a central team on the COVID situation. That's going to be our big focus. But we've also got something very special planned on this program, and this is really something that you don't want to miss. Also on the show, Craig Foster and Pippa Ehrlich. They join me to discuss their Oscar-nominated stunner. It's called My Octopus Teacher. It's been produced by Netflix. Now, there's an interesting NDTV Connect. Craig is married to our environment editor, Swati Tyagarajan. This is a film which has been nominated for an Oscar. This is a discussion you don't want to miss on a film which is truly, truly remarkable. But let's turn now to our big focus, the letter which has been sent by the centre to the Maharashtra government, and a couple of the key points. It's stinging absolutely. The point being made is that Maharashtra is now in the beginning of the second phase of COVID, and that the centre says that there are limited efforts to track and trace in the state and a high positivity rate. The centre says that there is a need for restrictions that were in place in August and September last year. So it seems like it's a return to what we thought we had finished. And as a result of some of these observations, there are new guidelines. These are important. Cinema halls, offices will function at 50% capacity. There will be no cultural, political or religious gatherings. That's something that's been stated as well. 50 people allowed to gather for weddings, 20 for funerals. So there are a lot of important steps now, but still no talk of a larger lockdown. Hopefully the situation will improve drastically, but the fact of the matter is that it's a fairly critical situation now in Maharashtra. Establishments that flout rules will remain closed till the end of the pandemic. So those are all of the concerns at this juncture. Joining us now, Dr. Shashank Joshi, member of the COVID Task Force in Maharashtra. We're also joined by Dr. Abhay Shukla, National Co-Convener of the Jan Swasthya Abhiyan, and Dr. T.P. Lahane, Director of the Medical Education and Research of Maharashtra. Thank you, sir. Thank you all very much for being with us. Dr. Joshi, let me come to you first. At this rate of the growth, of the expansion of COVID numbers, it's escalating at a proportionate number. How far do you see this actually going until it's brought under control? Is there any way in which you can give us an indicator of how big this spread is, say, compared to what we saw a few months back?
So clearly there is a red flag, and I think our biggest challenge today is the asymptomatic cases are the spreaders. So there's a faster transmissible virus. Whether you like it or not, whether genomic testing proves it or not, definitely the strain we are seeing, whether it's homeborn or outside, is spreading faster. The asymptomatic need to be contained at home and isolated at home. They are flouting their norms. So our biggest nightmare in Maharashtra state is to contain the asymptomatics, and that's the big challenge. And I think many places now are establishing institutional quarantine in place. Poorer contact tracing, we need 1:30, and I think that is not faring well at all. And that's something which we need to ramp up in a big way. And overall, completing the testing facilities to the utmost. But we still need to be masking rigorously, and we still need to have some very tight COVID-appropriate protocols in place, whether it is shops, whether it is malls, whether it is restaurants, all unmasking places. We need to be very strict. And I think that little lackadaisical attitude has cost us a lot. I think even now it's still not late. We are in an orange zone. Before it turns out fully red, we have time to correct it. And I feel in 2 to 3 weeks, if we are able to take some very aggressive, proactive measures, we might be able to dent the curve.
Dr. Shukla, is it time for us to now get serious about vaccination, not just about 45 plus individuals with comorbidities, but use the resources we have, the private effort, the fact that we have got all the vaccines available in this country to open it up?
Yeah, Vishnu, I think that's an important point. But before that, I think we need to recognize that Maharashtra is now in a second wave of COVID. And the reason for this second wave is that in the first wave, while certain significant sections of the population were affected, certain other sections did remain unaffected or less affected. And it's a pooling of those susceptible populations, which is now leading to the second wave. In the first wave, we had mostly slum areas in cities like Pune and Mumbai, which were more affected. At least in Pune, I can tell you. Today, in the second wave, it's actually residential colonies and middle class areas which are showing larger number of cases. So there is a accumulation of susceptibles, which has now been the pool in which the second wave is tends to be developing. Another point is the super spreader events, which have been talked about, and I think that's very important. And I think Dr. Shashank has also talked about that large gatherings, weddings, political or social events, these also have been sparking points for reactivating the transmission among the susceptible groups. A third point which I'd like to just point out is that there is a model which had predicted the second wave in Pune, which was available 3 months back, the TCS Prayas model for Pune. And this model had predicted that the second wave, at its peak, which will be somewhere between middle of March and middle of April, will be roughly 70% of the number of cases that was seen in the first wave. This has already been predicted almost 3 months back. So we need to look carefully at this model, which is based on agent-based modeling, which has shown the actual micro patterns of transmission in cities like Pune. And there's a lot that you can learn from this modeling, which needs to be applied quickly and rapidly, at least across all other urban areas in Maharashtra. If we're able to do that, we can have a better idea of what is set to be coming. Third important point is the need to again step up the health system capacities to deal with critical cases. Today in Pune, all large public and even private hospitals which are dedicated for COVID, the COVID beds are full. The ICU and ventilator beds are full. So this is a reasonably serious situation.
I just want to go to Dr. Lahane for his remarks on this as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Doctor, in this situation, rather than maybe look at what we should have done and what's not been done in Maharashtra at all, what can be done at this stage? It's an emergency, let's face it. Let's no longer play it down. Let's give it the due importance that it deserves. The numbers don't lie to us. Should there be an emergency rollout of the vaccine to a larger number of citizens as a first step?
I think as the number is increasing, we should also roll out that in the area where you can say it is going from the in the near about the road zone, red zone. There we should vaccinate the public, and we should the government of India should provide more vaccine in this area. I think as the vaccine is there, and this rollout of the vaccine will definitely be helpful. And with that, I think the government of Maharashtra is taking all the steps, but definitely the vaccine will help more. And now as the Maharashtra, you see, there is a lockdown in Nagpur. Then even you can say night curfews. Every step has been taken. Also the tracing, and this is going on. We are doing near about 1,20,000 tests every day. So I think all the efforts we are doing, but vaccine will definitely play a big role. If the vaccine is there, it is provided in the area where the number is more.
So I think the big question therefore is what is the centre, what is the state government waiting for? Why is this already not happening? We've seen these numbers rise now for more than a week, well more than a week. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. It's a story we'll keep tracking very closely indeed. In the cold underwater kelp forest off Cape Town, South Africa, the story of the incredible bond between the filmmaker Craig Foster and a young octopus, how curiosity paved the way for an intimate relationship in a magical world. A lesson on the fragility of life and humanity's connection with nature. The name of the film, produced by Netflix, is My Octopus Teacher, and it's now been nominated for the Oscars, which is just incredible. Now, the film also happens to be rather close to our hearts here at NDTV. Craig, who joins us in a moment, is married to our environment editor Swati Tyagarajan, who was a part of the production of the film. We're also very privileged to be joined by Pippa Ehrlich, the director. Thank you, Craig and Pippa, very much for being with us. Craig, let me come to you first. How has the kelp forest of Cape Town been a magical world that you have known for decades? How did it end up inspiring you into making friends with an octopus?
Vishnu, I started diving when I was 3 years old. So it's always been part of my life. And then I was inspired by my San Bushman mentors to learn underwater tracking because I'd spent many years with them in the Kalahari. And then it was just more by chance that I met this extraordinary young octopus, and she became my teacher. I was just on the most extraordinary journey, being, let into her secret life.
Pippa, when you started directing this, did you have any idea where it would end up?
We had absolutely no idea. We started off making this film in Craig's attic. We had no budget. We didn't have a distributor at that point. We just had a story that we both cared about on a very, very deep level. And this incredibly inspirational kelp forest on our doorstep. And we just threw ourselves into it with our whole hearts. And 3 years later, there we were on Netflix.
Unbelievable. And now you're nominated for an Oscar. It's just such a dream come true. Craig, an octopus relies on instinct. They're often incredibly timid. I know this as being a diver myself. How did you become friendly with an octopus? Why did this octopus not scoot away?
It was a very slow process, Vishnu. I mean, as you say, a lot of octopus behavior is instinctual, but of course they're incredible learners. It's the most intelligent mollusk on the planet, so they've got this enormous intelligence. And slowly, I built her trust. And then one day she, of course, reached out and made contact with me. And then from that day on, it just got closer and closer till she completely trusted me. She'd come out her den and greet me, and we used to go on hunting expeditions. And she even used me sometimes to corral prey and so on. So it was, it took quite a while, but that deep trust was what allowed me into her secret world and to see all these incredible behaviors and learn from her.
Pippa, filming this underwater would have been fairly difficult because the seas over there are fairly choppy. Weather is a factor. To get the shots that you required over a period of time and exactly what you were trying to talk about or to explain or to showcase must have been an incredible challenge. Tell us about that.
It is challenging to film in an ocean environment, particularly in the kelp forest. You can't predict what conditions will be like, and you can't control them. And we were always, everything we did was dependent on the ocean and what the ocean was doing. Sometimes you're going out in crazy big waves, but that can be amazing because then you get the shots that you need to tell that part of the story. And other times, very, very rarely, the ocean is flat and calm and clean, and you have 30 meters of visibility, and you get shots where you can get a sense of this tiny human being in a big, wide underwater forest. But it is a difficult environment to film in, and that's really something that Craig has mastered. And most of this film was shot with no wetsuits, in cold water, and without scuba tanks. So,
Craig, that was in fact my next question to you. That's incredible. You've done this all your life, so you know a thing or two about holding your breath underwater, but freediving comes with its own sets of risks. And to be able to actually think over an extended period of time while looking for an octopus and diving in a particular and swimming in a particular area with the waves and the movement and maintaining your buoyancy and all of that, that just sounds so difficult. Tell us about that, freediving.
I guess, initially it is difficult, but if you're doing it every day for years, which I was privileged enough to do, you get very used to it. The kelp forest here, the great African sea forest, it feels to me like my underwater home. I go every day, so I'm very familiar with it. And there's no thinking. It's just a flowing with that great underwater environment. So quite a lot of the diving is shallow. And of course, I did have tremendous help apart from this extraordinary team that we have. We made this film, a big team. Swati, as you know, just a fantastic help. Pippa, James, the incredible directors. But Roger Horrocks is one of the best underwater cinematographers in the world and a great friend, and he helped me as well. I set up remote cameras in the kelp forest and I was filming every day. So it's just a combination of slowly chipping away, and then this incredible story emerging.
Pippa, when did this stop being a film, or did it ever stop being a film? And it sort of became an emotional connect to a wonderful creature and the story of this. So, did it ever stop being a film for you?
I mean, I think it became a lifestyle and a life purpose. You know, by the time it was an incredible privilege to make this film because it was a truly immersive experiential process. We were in the water every single day. We were bringing things back to the edit. We were talking about experiences that we'd had. You know, I was spending tens of hours a day staring into the eyes of octopuses, you know, on the screen, and then we'd see them when we dived as well. So, yeah, it was far more than a film. It was a life-changing life experience that I'll never forget.
Craig, you've seen the octopus was attacked as well, and how she had to ward off those attacks. You saw how she adapted to those attacks in the future. What was going through your mind when you saw that? Did you feel that you were about to lose a friend?
And more than a friend, Vishnu. This animal was really, you know, like I would say, like kin. There's a kinship. So she's my teacher. She's not my pet or my friend, really. So of course one's tremendously nervous when she's under threat. But also, and I know all the animals of the kelp forest. I know the sharks intimately. I know their lives and how fragile their lives are too. So it's not for me to interfere with wild nature. That would be, you know, going against all my understanding and all my teaching. So I just had to be witness to what happened. Luckily, you know, she used her incredible genius to survive.
But then Pippa, ultimately she didn't, which is natural, and that's the way things are. And so tell us a little bit about that. That must have been a real heartbreaker for you.
That was a heartbreak. I mean, of course, I wasn't there when the octopus died. I only came onto the project later, but certainly when I cut that final sequence, it's not often that you start crying while you're editing something, but I was absolutely in tears. But, you know, there's something beautiful about how that animal lived the life that she was meant to live. And it is very sad, but there's an incredible lesson, and that was really what came out of the film for us, in this animal that kind of spends her final days making sure that her next generation will survive to live the life that they need to. And I suppose that's kind of what the film, a big theme of the film is what it means to look ahead for the people and animals that come after you.
Craig, what did the octopus mean to you?
Gosh, so many things, you know. It's a bit of a tough question. I mean, she, you know, represents in a way a doorway into deep nature, a doorway into deep tracking. And she inspired me so much to feel part of this forest, to really feel that I wasn't, you know, just visiting, that I was really part of this place, and that I could feel a little bit of my amphibious nature come out in that place. So she really was this this emissary into this extraordinary world, which I finally felt very, very closely connected to.
Craig, tell us a little bit more about the kelp forest. I mean, I use the word magical in describing it based on the pictures, the video. I mean, the film itself, it looks stunning. But tell us a little bit, our viewers. You know,
so that's a great question, because we're trying to, and this is Swati's idea, to take this great African sea forest and make it into a global icon, so like the Serengeti or the Great Barrier Reef, because this is a way we feel we can really protect this special place. It's, you know, it's got one of the highest biodiversity levels in the world, probably the highest biodiversity in Africa. It's a giant underwater forest that stretches 1,400 kilometers along our coast and turns around at the tip of Africa. It's basically like, imagine, you know, a forest on land that's filled with water and it's quite misty. and you can fly in that forest. You're gravity free. It's the most magical place I've ever been in my life.
It looks like absolute magic. Pippa, final question to you. So, I mean, are you nervous about the days ahead, the fact that you've been nominated for an Oscar, or is there a sense of deep gratitude at what you've achieved so far?
There's a sense of deep gratitude and a sense of deep terror as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As a first-time filmmaker, to be in this position is really quite a mind-blowing and overwhelming experience, but what an incredible privilege. And to have met all the people who I've met along the journey and worked with very experienced and talented filmmakers from all over the world, I couldn't be more grateful. Everybody who we worked with just really poured their magic and their love into this project, and I really think that's what people are resonating with all over the world.
Craig, I must ask you, this is very much a culmination in a sense for you. You filmed with sharks, you filmed with octopus, you filmed with crocs as well. You know, and this story took you a long time to do. And here you find yourselves on the cusp of an Oscar, and you've been nominated for an Oscar. What does this moment mean for you in terms of what you've achieved in sort of reaching out to the wildlife, to the environment?
Yes, I mean, I struggle with, I'm not used to this sort of level of attention. It's very strange and surreal. We could never ever in our wildest dreams have imagined being in this position. But the great silver lining here, Vishnu, is that we now have a chance to, show the world how powerful nature is and how powerful the lives of these incredible animals are. And we're in a difficult position at the moment. Biodiversity collapsing in the way it has. This is the lifeblood. This is the immune system of the planet we're talking about. It's the biosurvival ticket for all of us humans. We have to realize that we have to, really look after wild nature and let her regenerate. Otherwise, we're going to have a very, very serious problem quite soon. And this is what I'm excited about, is that people have, rallied towards this film and understood this. And it gives me great hope that we can, overcome the enormous environmental crisis that we are all facing.
Craig, somebody just wrote in, somebody who identifies herself as being a 10-year-old, asking, Craig, do you have a new best friend underwater?
I've got many, many incredible relationships, in the kelp forest, but they're often more fleeting. These incredible fish, in love with these rock sucker fish that can grip onto the rocks with their huge suction pads and even surf up the rocks. We've had incredible experiences recently with otters. So it's an ongoing thing, giant stingrays, incredible experiences of late. So often they're more fleeting. This experience over this longer time was unusual. So it's an ongoing thing, and I'm really, very much in love with the creatures of the forest and the place itself.
Pippa, I keep saying final question and then I keep asking more, but perhaps this will be the final question. What was the biggest frustration or the biggest difficulty or challenge in directing this film?
Being indirect in this film?
Or putting it together?
Okay. Oh, in directing this film, sorry. I think the biggest challenge probably always in a film is finding the right voice. And certainly for me, I was working with the subject, Craig, who was a big part of the filmmaking process, but also a very close friend. And something that's very, very effective and authentic in the film that you see in the end is that interview, which was done by my wonderful co-director, James Reed. And earlier on in the process, I tried to do the interview, but what I learned quite quickly is it's really hard to interview your friend, and it's really hard to interview someone who knows the story already. So, yeah, that was a big breakthrough for us, was sitting Craig down with someone who he didn't know and having him tell that story as if he was telling it for the very first time.
Well, I'd like to thank both of you very much for joining us. You've certainly got our vote for an Oscar. That's absolutely clear. It's an incredible story. I saw it several weeks back. It is remarkable. I'd encourage all our viewers to get out there and try and see it. Good luck. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you.